Well, welcome to Break Away from the Rat Race. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with John Rickgarn. If you were to ask John how to introduce himself, he would say that he's an investor, an educator, and a realtor. He lost both of his parents to cancer by age 16. And John realized then that the typical path to getting a job and investing in a tax-deferred account for retirement may not work for everyone. And I think he realized also that it wouldn't work for him. John, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Eric.
Yeah, so John, this is pretty brutal awakening at 16 to figure out that life is, you have to take control of your life, and you can't rely on having a job, a cushy job, and then retiring with your 401k. So tell us more about that, kind of how your thinking changed at that point.
Sure. Yeah. Well, again, Eric, thanks for having me on the show, and I'd be more than happy to share my story. Ironically, it wasn't until many years later that I kind of had my awakening moment. Even after my mom passed away in '99, and finished high school, went to college, got my first job, etc. Still did the whole, work hard, save money, max out your IRA, your 401k, etc. And it wasn't until about 15 years later that it just kind of dawned on me that I was like, well, gosh, I'm 31 years old now. If I basically doubled my whole life again, relived that entire experience, I still want to be at the arbitrary age 65, and I'd be working 40, 50, 60 hours a week during that whole time. And it was November of 2014 that I just kind of had a, what if moment that I was like, well, what if I don't make it to 65? I mean, both my parents passed away in the 50s, and was just thinking, well, they didn't make it till age 65. None of us are guaranteed, to be here at quote unquote retirement age. So why am I designing my entire life, deferring my life, for that matter, for a date that's not, set in stone? Why am I, doing this? So then I just kind of set on a path of, there's got to be a different way. There's got to be a better way to enjoy life now versus deferring everything to a later date.
Exactly. Yeah. First of all, people think that it's not clockwork, right? So people are going to think, oh yeah, I'm going to retire at 65 and I'm going to get my 401k, and then everything is going to be fine.
Yeah.
Only like a minority of the people, like less than 50% of the people actually retire at the age they were planning to retire.
Yeah.
So most people are retiring earlier. Some of them are forced to work later than they expected.
Yep.
But the people that have to retire earlier, because they had they were let go of their current employment earlier than expected, and then it's harder to find another job, or sometimes it's health issues for themselves or somebody in the family member, and they have to take care of them. So there's all kinds of things that happen, and if you're thinking that, everything is clockwork, I can put it on my calendar on July 1st, blah, 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 2030, I'm going to be retiring at age 65 and all that. It doesn't work like that. You have to have some flexibility in your plan.
Yeah. The last stat I think I saw was, this is like 4 years ago, but I want to say that of people age 65, only about 5% were either wealthy or financially stable. I think only 1% were quote unquote wealthy, but like you said, some are still working part-time, some are still dependent on Social Security or family. And I think it was like 30 or 40% were actually passed or dead by 65. So.
Yeah, exactly. And so you had your aha moment, and then that's when you started focusing then on, okay, I want a passive income and educate yourself on generating passive income. So what got you started on the passive income?
Sure. Well, right away, it wasn't even like a light switch, like, oh, I have to get passive income. It was more of just I don't think this traditional path is going to work for me. So, I was kind of at the point of unconscious incompetence where I don't know what I don't know. So I was like, okay, what do I do from here? And at the time I had a sales job where I was on the road anywhere from 100 to 200 miles a day. So learn about this great thing called podcast, just like yourself. And instead of listening to, my Rammstein or Metallica for the 20th, 30th, 50th time, I started downloading podcasts, everything from infinite banking to real estate investing. and just kind of soak in, more and more knowledge of, what are some other avenues to generate passive streams of income.
Yeah. And then, yeah, we're just looking at some of the, I was looking at your website, which is wealthandfreedomnexus.com. And then you have some recommended reading in there. And we were talking earlier about, you have this book here
Yep.
on your website.
An oldie but goodie.
And this is what got me started into really thinking about passive income, and kind of like start building that, and building multiple paths to multiple types of investment that are all bringing passive income. And if so you diversify that way.
Right.
And so I thought it was pretty interesting. And of course you have other recommendations in there that about Rich Dad Poor Dad, obviously, but so this is very good. And then so you educate yourself, but then pretty soon after, so you got your aha moment in 2014. But then already 2016, what happens?
Sure. Yeah. So as I started, researching more, and interesting little tidbit on that, 2015, I kind of had another awakening moment. My day job was an employee-owned company. So again, back to the traditional, recommended way of life. Looked at it's like, oh, employee-owned stock ownership plan. I'm going to be a millionaire by the time I retire. We got the awakening that, oh yeah, by the way, we sold the company. So we got sold out to a private equity firm. So there goes that plan down the tubes. So that really kind of stepped up my game of thinking, okay, I really can't depend on just a big pile of money by 65. So had really concentrated more on real estate, and I had really narrowed down my focus. I wanted a 1 to 4 unit property, 1% rent to value ratio, could be easily managed by a property manager, newer construction, no deferred maintenance, etc. And my wife even joked that, well, you're never going to find that. And I thought, okay, I'll start with a single family home. That's what everybody does, and kind of work their way up. And it was June of 2016 that a fourplex popped up on the MLS, hit all my criteria, but obviously, expenditure wise, almost $300,000. Like, okay, well, where am I going to come up with the down payment for this? And kind of back to where you said my book recommendations, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I always remember the quote by Robert Kiyosaki. Don't say I can't afford it. Ask how can you afford it? So just started thinking more. And then I learned that, back to maxing out my IRAs since I was 19, that you can take out your contributions from a Roth IRA tax-free or with no penalties. So after some thinking and running the numbers, decided to pull out my contributions from my Roth IRA. And that was the bulk of the down payment for our first investment property, which is a fourplex.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people start with the single family because there's there are more of them. You have more options and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But because in the last 500 houses I bought, there was it was probably only a handful of maybe 3 or 4 that were like fourplex. We had more duplex and stuff. Fourplex were very rare, and a few in between. And one of them was actually a triplex that we converted into a fourplex. So
cool.
That doesn't count,
right?
But yeah, so they're just hard to find. So once you find them, I mean, typically the numbers also work a little bit better.
Right.
So your cap rate and your cash on cash return, normally they work a little bit better.
Well, it's nice too. I mean, you have 1 roof versus 4. I mean, if you have 1 vacancy, you can still carry the mortgage and expenses with the other 3. So I mean, I see a lot of pros with multifamilies, or the 2 to 4 units versus a single family.
Yeah. And I think this is true too. Like a lot of people, I mean, about taking action and stuff like that. I mean, once you find a deal, something that makes sense, it's really, a lot of people are saying, well, they find all kinds of problems, stuff like that, instead of really focusing on how do I do it? Like what are my options? This is something I really want, and want to have in my portfolio. How do I do it? How do I add that to my portfolio so that it makes sense for me? And that kind of opened up your mind and your thinking to broader solutions, to finding a solution, instead of saying, oh, this is tough, and and this, thinking about all the bad scenario, everything that can go
Right.
wrong. Now you're thinking about everything that, how do you do that? Like, what are some of the options?
Yeah. Well,
You
I
go
mean,
down
you
the
can
option.
worry, till the cows come home of everything that could go wrong, but
Yeah.
95% of it will never come to fruition. And you just take it a day at a time. And if something comes up, you just address it.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too about employment. I want to go back to kind of your employment, because that's kind of interesting. A lot of people feel very safe about their employment, and then they think, okay, yeah, this is, I have a good job, especially if you were in sales before. So typically you can easily find some job in sales for all, it's always a big demand for salespeople. And, but you're not in control. And
Right.
then even when you were employee owned, you own part of the company. you
Yep.
still you still didn't have control. So
Exactly. Yeah.
this is crazy. Like, so this is why it's important really to focus on having some level of control, and having building your passive income portfolio, your rental property portfolio, puts you more on the driver's seat. That doesn't mean things can't go wrong, but at least if it goes wrong, then you have more control on how to solve the issue. And also, you only have yourself to blame in most cases.
Right.
So it's
Well,
not
I
that
think the
bad.
big thing too is it just goes back to like the book, you had multiple streams of income. And yeah, I did have a great income from my sales job, but I learned,
Mhm.
that was one stream of income. And in conjunction with losing the, employee stock ownership plan, new owners, they started, changing the commission structure and changed, a lot of the internal workings.
Yeah.
And between, the bonus schedules, the commission schedules, everything, my income got cut in about half from 2015 to
Wow.
2016.
Wow.
And just like you said, it's like, well, how much control do I have, and how much safety and security do I have if I just have one stream of income? And from there, I was kind of like, okay, I definitely got to start looking at a, shall we say, an exit path. And this has got to be sooner than age 65.
Yeah. So that exactly. And just to give you another, for people that are not convinced yet that your job is not as safe as you think it is. I was meeting with a bunch of business people, and everybody was like basically financially free, pretty wealthy, and then we're all talking about our goals for this year, what we're planning to do. And then people say, oh, I want to increase my my income by 25% this year, or I want to increase it by 50%. I want to do this and stuff like that. This gives you an idea of, I mean, you don't, if you have a full-time job, you're not going to say, well, I'm going to increase my salary by 25% this
Right.
year. No, you're not in control. All these guys were like saying, okay, no, I need to this is what I have a plan. I want to increase my revenue by 25-50% this year. And it's like, that shows you that once you are financially free, once you have your time back, that you can really start to make these decisions, and think about ways to grow your salary, to grow, increase your revenue, and to reach your goal. So it's kind of a different conversation, in a different mentality altogether.
Right.
So tell me what happens after the fourplex.
So the fourplex closed on that in August of 2016. Didn't really have I don't want to say a clear path after that. It was just kind of like, okay, got the first property, keep on a lookout for the next one. The next one actually came from word of mouth, ironically, from our property manager. They had gotten a call from a referral on a tenant. We need a background check and history, and they asked the property management company, hey, do you buy properties as well? And Scott had taken a call, and he's like, well, no, but I think I know someone that might be interested. So he called me up. This was spring of 2018. It was a duplex that was also within their management area. So same property management company. They had a high demand for, rentals in the area. So obviously not in the market. So it wasn't a, competitive situation with, 30 offers competing for it or anything.
Yeah.
And that duplex that we got in 2018 has actually been our cash cow. We've obviously rent out both units, but we also rent out the garages for additional storage, and also have coin op laundry and or washer and dryer on premises too. So we actually got 4 income streams from one property.
Wow, wow. That's very good. And then, so what's your, so after that, any, that you added more to your portfolio after that? And how's that going?
Yeah, after that, decided to kind of branch out from Minnesota. I mean, I don't know, Minnesota is not exactly a California or New York, but I wouldn't say it's the most landlord friendly state in the nation, so to speak. So after that, I started learning more about turnkey providers, which, you know, buy, rehab, and then sell the properties with the tenant to investors. So started researching in 2019, and actually, one step back, we ended up getting a second home vacation condo in early 2019 in Tucson, Arizona, partially because my wife has family there, but we figured, well, let's have a place to stay when we go visit and rent it out. So that was our one little dip into the short-term rental space.
Yeah.
But then after that, we also acquired 2 properties in Birmingham, Alabama, one in
Another good
Memphis.
market. Yeah,
Yep.
Memphis, good market.
Yeah, especially the Bessemer Hueytown with the addition of the Amazon warehouses. We've seen almost a 50% appreciation in our one house there in just about 3 years.
Yeah, same for me.
Yep. And then last acquisition was a duplex, again off market in Davenport, Iowa, which I kind of like the numbers, and obviously migration trends, people fleeing the Illinois side of the border, going to the Iowa side of the border for lower taxes and more job opportunities. So
yeah, this is very interesting. I mean, you know, you mentioned California and stuff like that, and I live in California, I live in LA, but I don't invest in California.
Right.
It doesn't make any sense to invest here if you're investing in for passive income.
Right.
Because the cash flow, you know, you could have it cash flow, but then you have to put so much money down that you know, the returns don't make sense.
Right.
And so that's why I invest. You know, I invest in landlord friendly states. So this is my number one criteria. And then after that it's all about sustainable growth in terms of the economy and the demographics to make sure that we don't get into, we can find good value and you know, there's still low unemployment and all of that.
Right.
So Memphis is a good one that we invest in, Cleveland, St. Louis, Detroit. This year we're adding a whole bunch of other markets, but yeah, we're all in the Midwest. We don't invest anything on the West Coast and nothing on the East Coast.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense. I mean, it's just, and now we're experiencing also a little bit of a migration out of California. A lot of people are kind of like looking outside with working from home trend and all of that.
Yeah, I think I just read an article earlier this week that they were trying to do a U-Haul index for number of U-Haul trucks leaving California, and there was actually a stat that they couldn't calculate it because they ran out of U-Hauls at a lot of distribution centers in California. So
yeah, that's right. So I did actually wrote an article in I think it was in Forbes article, and it was about, I was using actually U-Haul data basically because the rates are they have implemented dynamic rates. So if you go from point A to point B, is a different rate than point B to point A because of the demand and supply. And yeah, so it was pretty interesting to see that, and you kind of had an idea also of the kind of like the migration trends in the United States. So
right,
it was so that was very good. All right, and then then you, after that, you kind of had like a change, not the change, but kind of I would say an evolution or something like that, where you decide that, you know, I have some pretty good experience. I'm just putting words in your mouth here.
Sure.
But, I guess you were probably thinking, well, I have a lot of experience. I want to help other people, kind of like know what it's like and help them, educate them, and share my journey and all of that. And that's when I guess you created Wealth and Freedom Nexus. Right. So tell us more about that.
Sure. Yeah. So that was kind of a, shall we say, an idea I've been kicking around for some time when I started listening to podcasts and absorbing a lot of information. And I mean, I think, you know, whether it's investing or, you know, medical or whatever the case may be, I think all of us know that there is good information on the internet, but there's a lot of crappy information or maybe even outdated information on the internet. So I kind of wanted to be more of a funnel where here's all the information I've taken in over the last 6 years. Here's what's worked best for me and is still applicable in this day and age. And then streamline that to my website, wealthandfreedomnexus.com, where, obviously I shared my story of, why I started investing for passive income, but then also book recommendations, podcasts, investment opportunities from, self-directed retirement accounts to crypto and obviously turnkey providers, all of which that I personally had dealt with or invested in, but then also were available for non-accredited investors. I think, unfortunately, a lot of people get discouraged when they want to get into investing, and so many are 506c where, well, you got to be an accredited investor to participate. And, I'm not even an accredited investor yet at this point, and I know several of my friends aren't either. So, even if you're not accredited, you can still start with even just $100 or $500 in a syndication and work your way up to a, large passive income portfolio. My, kind of catchphrase I've always had is financial freedom, one bill at a time, because I think a lot of the gurus, say, oh, you need $5,000 a month or 10,000 or whatever the number is for a, passive income goal. I just look at it as like, okay, look at your monthly expenditures, the fixed ones that never change. I always joke of everyone seems to have a Netflix subscription. So 15, $20 a month. And then just start brainstorming. Okay, what's a passive income stream you can create that pays you 15, $20 a month that then pays your Netflix subscription? And once you have that bill taken care of, then just move on to the next, next bill, and then just kind of keep rolling from there.
So that's a very good point. That's kind of it's interesting as well. For me, like I'm asking people to look at your expenses. What are your monthly expenses, and then from there, this kind of like make that your goal, at least because you want to cover your living expenses. But this is a very good idea to kind of break it down even further and take it like one bill at a time and say, okay, I'm going to pay the Netflix bill, I'm going to pay this, I'm going to pay that, and then eventually you get into, I'm going to pay my healthcare bill.
Right. Well, and like I said, I focus more on the fixed monthly bills first, and obviously you got the variables. I think everyone listening to this knows that, well, if you got less money coming in, eat out less or go on fewer vacations. I mean, I think we all know those common sense things. But I mean, if you have a rent that's $750 a month and that's set every single month, it's not like you can go to your landlord and say, oh, well, I had a slow month this month. Can I only pay $500 a month for my rent this month, and then I'll pay $750 next month? No, that's pretty consistent month in and month out.
And for me, like a lot of people are just thinking, oh, I'm going to cut my expenses and I'm going to do this and stuff like that. And to me, like, I don't want to be financially free so I can live less.
Right.
I want to, otherwise I might as well have a job and then just, So I want to live my life, but I want to be financially free. I want to be able to have my time back and travel more. So I expect my travel budget to go up.
Right.
I expect maybe going out for a restaurant could go maybe sideways. Other things could go up and down.
Sure.
But so to me, that's about living. So what do you need to live on to, so you can enjoy life, not like live a miserable life. At least I don't have a job.
Well, enjoy life. And then, like you said, concentrate on, raising your income, where I think there's too many in the, Dave Ramsey books where it's, eat rice and beans and minimize your life to the bare essentials and kind of, hate to say, but live a boring life. It's like, I want to live an exciting life. I want to work on concentrating, growing my income, not just cutting my expenses.
Exactly. And I think this is also part of that, the FIRE movement. I think there's kind of obviously different branches, but when I was looking a lot more at that FIRE movement, which is financial independence, retire early, kind of is what's the acronym stand for. And it was really about that, it was really focused towards younger people. And it was really about cutting expenses and, living with 5 roommates instead of one and stuff like that. I'm exaggerating, of course, but so that's, and to me, that's not the lifestyle I want, obviously.
Right.
And, So
Yeah, which I mean, everyone's, situation is different. I mean, if you're, have a 5,000 square foot home and you live alone and maybe you have too much space, okay, well, maybe downsizing would make sense. But yeah, I'm not one to say, okay, I'm gonna, move in with 5 roommates or live in a, trailer or RV and travel the world either. So
yeah. So what's so you've talked to a few people through your website and all of that. So what's the biggest challenge that people have when they want to get started with on the financial freedom path?
I think probably the biggest challenge, and I still talk with, friends and family, is really just kind of getting started, really. And it's just, they read the books, they listen to the podcast, they absorb the information and, sign up for the newsletters, but they just never take action. And I think one part of it's just kind of complacency where, well, everything's fine. My job is quote safe. My life is hunky dory right now. I don't need to worry about this. And I think too is even if they look at, the properties, I mean, I still have several people say, well, I don't want to be a landlord. I don't want to deal with tenants and termites and toilets and trash. And I always respond, it's like, well, I don't either. That's why I hire property management companies. That's why I invest in, landlord friendly markets. And other than maybe a monthly call, I'm pretty much hands off. And I think just those two things are the really big sticking points for people. And I kind of, tell a lot of people, as much as it angered me in 2015 that our company sold off, we were no longer an employee owned company. On the flip side, ironically, it was one of the best things that happened to me, because then that really drove me to, okay, I have to make changes. It wasn't just oh, I have this huge retirement plan. Life is great. I, will have this huge bucket of money when I retire. I mean, it really did light a fire under me where, okay, I definitely have to change my life. I have to do a 180. So, I mean, sometimes for people that are maybe complacent with their lives and their jobs, sometimes they need that rude awakening to really get them moving.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit addictive, especially I think, especially the more money you make, I think the more addictive it is.
Yep.
Because then you're just like, wow, I have like all this money and I'm feeling good and all of that. And it's kind of hard to kick the habit really
Yep.
and say, okay, well, if things go wrong, then I also fall from a high altitude. So
Right.
so it's not going to be. Do you think it's harder or easier to convince friends and family than other people that barely know you?
uh Boy, that's a tough one. I would say it's maybe a little bit easier helping friends and I want to say total strangers, just because there's kind of a distance there already where they're just kind of going there for education,
Yeah.
where for family sometimes it's, you know not to cause like internal strife, but sometimes, various family members just kind of have their heels dug in of, this is what I've always done, this is what I always will do.
Yeah.
And versus, someone that you just met off the internet or through a podcast where, I don't want to say that they don't see you as having an agenda, but they just kind of look at you as a neutral person where, hey, I have no affiliations with this person. This is what they're trying to do to educate me. I think I will,
Yeah.
follow in their footsteps.
Yeah, because I have the problem with my sister. I'm trying to convince her, and she's very much into the 401k, the retirement plan, and all of
Yeah.
that. Like she's just like, oh my god. And she works, but mind you, she works for the government, so
Uh,
she's probably a little bit safer than other
yeah. If
people.
there's, I don't know, if there's government or job security, I think, government's definitely one of them.
Yeah, it's pretty close. It's pretty close, that's for sure.
So,
So the other thing is about taking action, and I've seen that quite a bit. People not taking action, and I know sometimes some of these things, some of these investments feel like they're risky.
mhm.
But how do you convince people to, and not necessarily, maybe convince is not the right word, but how do you encourage people to take action?
Sure. I think for encouragement, I mean, like you said, obviously you can do a Google search and then find every horror story from a, Bernie Madoff fund to a, landlord horror story. But on the flip side, I think you can kind of turn that, away and say, well, do you think your 401k is safe and secure? And, we're coming up on year 14 since the Great Recession, but I know of a lot of people, my aunt included, that was looking forward to retirement, and almost overnight, the 30 to 40% of their life savings was wiped out.
Yeah.
And, how safe and secure is that? What are the risks there?
Yeah.
And I think just kind of opening up, of reframing that of, do you think it's risky to expand out, have multiple streams of income that are passive? Or do you think it's more risky to have one stream of income that is active, that can be changed on a dime, whether it's a COVID lockdown or a, company going, for bankruptcy, or if your entire nest egg is in your 401k and it loses 40% overnight, how risky is that? And I think just opening people up to their, opening up their minds to see that their path might not be as safe and secure as they thought it was, then it kind of opens up their mind of, okay, well, I thought investing in real estate, stocks, crypto, etc., was risky, but if I educate myself more on it, maybe it won't be as risky. I mean, if people think investing in the stock market is risky, talk to Warren Buffett. He's one of the most, experienced investors out there, and he's become a billionaire in the stock market.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's true. I think people need to realize like where the risk actually lies, right?
Hmm.
Because I think it's absolutely true. I mean, if we have most people's 401k is stored in, or say invested in mutual funds or some
Hmm.
kind of fund, and if the stock market goes down, yeah, your nest egg also goes down with it.
Yeah.
Typically, if you invest in some kind of rental property or real estate or
Hmm.
something like that, there's going to be some value left over if you think long term as well. Like, the value of the house is gonna recover. It's gonna be there
Hmm.
because people always need a place to live or a place to rent and stuff like that. So for all these reasons, there's some kind of like bottom to where the real estate can go.
Hmm.
And sometimes the stock market is not, it's not really connected with reality,
Right.
so there's some numbers there. I mean, you just look at the dot-com crash in 2000. I mean, like for over a few weeks, and the market kept going down and down and down,
Yeah.
and so it was significant. I had a lot of money on that thing.
Yep.
Lost millions of dollars in stock options
Exactly.
and stuff like that. And again, that kind of goes back to me to control,
Hmm.
understanding that, hey, that money, that it's good to have the money there. It's good to diversify and have other people and invest in other asset class and all of that. But you have to realize that asset class is a different animal. You're not in control of the company. You're not in
Hmm.
control of the news, and you're not really sure what's going to happen in the stock market with the economy and all of that. So
Hmm.
anybody that tells you otherwise, I've probably
Yep.
been, probably
Well, I
wouldn't listen.
mean, even just, yeah, just in my short life, span, I've seen, someone sends out a tweet, not naming names, but their stock then dive bombs 25%, within an
Yeah,
hour.
yeah,
Flash crashes, just bottom out with all the algorithms and, computerized trading nowadays. And then
yeah,
you got the whole government in the mix. I mean, if the Fed decides, yeah, the inflation is an issue, we need to, hike up rates or stop with quantitative easing or whatnot, what you saw gain for an entire year in your stock market portfolio might be gone within just a matter of weeks or days.
yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So again, not, yeah, I didn't even mention the government. You're right as well. Like the government or the Fed make any kind of big
mhm.
move on the stock market, or the inflation goes through the roof, and then all of a sudden they have to increase the interest rate. So that's
Yep.
going to have an impact,
Hmm.
all that. It might have an impact also on the real estate side of it. Let's be fair as well.
Yeah. I
But
mean, yeah, it can obviously impact everything from, our consumer goods to real
yeah,
estate. And I mean, obviously, if mortgage rates go high, that tends to kind of put a little bit downward pressure on real estate. So
Yeah,
again, if you're investing for cash flow, it's not a big a deal.
exactly.
If you're banking on appreciation and was hoping to flip that property for 50 grand more, then you might have an issue.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so that's why I keep telling people, I said, now is the time to invest in real estate because interest rates are pretty low.
Yep.
They're not as low as they were a couple of years ago, but they're still very, very low. And if we go into inflation, then the rates are going to go up. I think Jerome Powell or the Fed was saying that they might have to increase the interest rate by like 4% this year. So if it goes up by 4%, it's going to more than double the interest rate.
Right.
And people think it's going to be gradual, and it's not always gradual. I mean, if you look at the 80s and stuff like that, they jacked up the rate very, very quickly because of the hyperinflation and some of the they were seeing. So it's not always smooth. It's not like, gradual, it's going to go up. I'll know when this happens. Nope.
Yeah. Well, like you said, with inflation, and impacting rates, the nice thing about real estate is you can lock it with 30-year fixed mortgages. I mean, right now, our vacation condo, we refinanced to a 30-year about 15 months ago, got in at 2.875, which, by my math, that's less than half the rate of the official inflation. And that's locked in for the next 30 years, regardless of what the Fed does.
Yeah, exactly. So so this is definitely in my opinion, is definitely the time to invest in real estate. It's one of the few investment where you can leverage so much for a long period of time and at a very low rate. I mean, it's just I don't want to say it, but it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like necessarily put everything in it, but definitely if you are in the stock market or something like that, that thinking about a little bit of diversification would be a good idea at this point. So
right, exactly.
All right. So tell me a little bit more about kind of like what, because some people think, well, what is like a financial freedom? So now you're working for yourself, full time. You quit that sales job a long time ago, and now, so what are you doing during the day? And kind of tell people what's the lifestyle of being financially free.
Sure. So I would just say kind of the lifestyle is more, and I would just even say as kind of like an entrepreneur. I have various side hustles. Obviously, I'm a realtor, so I help first time home buyers, but then also I'm an investor friendly agent, which there seem to be few and far of those out there nowadays. And obviously I consider it my job to educate people and understand the leverages and advantages of real estate and passive investing. But then, like I said, I can decide, next week, I'm going to take the week off. I don't need to ask my boss for time off, or I don't need to, make sure my coworker keeps on top of all my projects. I can kind of work as little or as much as I want. Obviously, I still have streams of active income, but I look at that as more of complementing my passive income streams. And I constantly reevaluate those as well and look of how can I reposition this to benefit me. You had just mentioned too, obviously with real estate prices going up, right now we're sitting on a fair amount of equity in our property. So I'm starting to crunch the numbers of, would it make sense to do a cash out refi, pull some cash out? There's a down payment for another property. Of course, obviously there's a bit of a housing shortage. So I obviously want to make sure that the numbers make sense, but looking over the next 24 months, on the conservative side, I'm thinking we can probably pull out between, I'd say, $75,000 and $150,000 of equity for down payments on other properties. Yeah, our mortgage payments are obviously going to go up, but then our passive income is going to go up as well too. And
that's right,
I might pay maybe 1% more than some of the fixed income interest rates that I have now. But I mean, I think anytime you can get under 7%, for a 30-year fixed, you're pretty much bound to win under those scenarios.
Yeah, totally agree. I think people are you have to look at your return on equity as well. As your equity builds up, you want to make sure that, yeah, you use refinancing tools and then kind of like buy additional properties.
Yep.
And people keep thinking that, oh yeah, but I have more loans, more mortgage and stuff like that. Yeah, it's okay. Focus on the cash flow. Don't
Right.
focus. I mean, you have to have the right balance on your, your liability and equity,
Mm-hmm.
but focus on the cash flow, and that makes sense. Because
Right.
with that money, if you use maximum leverage, you can buy like 2 or 3 properties
Mm-hmm.
just by putting your down payment. Now you have 3 properties appreciating at
Right.
9%, and this is where the money is. Like when you're going to
Mm-hmm.
look at it 20 years down the road, this is
Yep.
where
And
the
then you
money
get
is.
the tax benefits and
And the tax
depreciation
benefit,
on
yeah,
the additional properties as well. So
exactly. Tons of advantages, that's for sure.
yes.
Yeah. So John, you also have a podcast.
Yep.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So obviously say the job or life of an entrepreneur, you're never bored and always thinking of what else can I do? And I just kind of looked at it as more of a, shall we say, kind of giving back of, podcast really helped me during my journey. So I want to launch a podcast on my own and again, kind of streamline all the information I took in over 7 years to kind of get more to direct and to the point. And, I try to keep the episodes between 30 and 40 minutes and the discussions on, whole life insurance and infinite banking. This is how it's worked for me. Hey, here's an interview with my mentor and friend that I got my first policy 5 years ago and how that's worked for me. Or here's an interview with a turnkey provider that I've used. Or here's an interview and discussion on precious metals or cryptocurrency. So my podcast isn't centered just on, real estate or investments. It's kind of more of a a holistic approach of finding the synergy between having wealth, passive income, and then having that buy your freedom and your time. Because kind of going back to what you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, my parents passed away in their 50s when I was 16 and none of us know how much time we have left. So why not set up streams of income now to basically buy your time back and have that freedom? And yeah, hopefully I live to, old and gray and 95 years old. But I mean, if I don't,
Yeah.
then at
Yeah.
least I'm living my life now versus deferring it.
Yeah. Excellent. What's the name of your podcast?
Same name, Wealth and Freedom
Okay.
Nexus podcast,
All
just
right.
kind of kept it the same.
Yeah, makes it simple. That way, everything is connected.
Exactly. Yep.
Wow, very good. So I know you have a lot of books on that you recommend on your website, but what is your kind of like your number one book that people are not talking enough about?
Not talking enough. I would probably highlight Power of Zero by David McKnight. And this kind of goes back to the retirement accounts. I think a lot of people get excited of, oh, I have this tax deferred account. And I don't think they realize you're basically just kicking the tax bill down the road.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I'm not an economist, but I think it's just a given that tax rates are going to be higher in the future based on history. So I look at it as, okay, do I want to have that in a tax deferred bucket or do I want to spread that out to tax free buckets? And I think David McKnight does a phenomenal job of showcasing how to utilize Roth IRAs, standard deductions, annuities, whole life insurance to really get to what he calls the 0% tax bracket. So if you're paying $0 in taxes and tax rates double in the future, well, 2 times 0 still is 0. And I don't think there's enough education around that. I think people just think, oh, my tax rate is whatever, 24% today. It's bound to be 24% when I retire. Well, historically and statistically speaking, probably not.
Yeah. And on top of that, you're looking at inflation.
Yep.
How that dollar that you're putting in today is going to be, yes, it's going to increase in value with the returns on that. You take away your your fees
Yep.
for managing the account, then you're cutting your return over time in
Yep.
half. then by the time you get there, it's going to be the purchasing power of that dollar is going to be, you hopefully you made a little bit of money, but it's not going to be what you think it is.
Yeah.
And then you have the fees to get that out, and the taxes, you're going to pay more taxes later on.
Right. Well, and I just always tell people from the deferred side, I put in $10,000 today. I'm going to quote save $2,500 in taxes today. Well, okay, but you're deferring that, and say everything goes well and that $10,000 grows to $100,000 when you retire. And maybe you are in a lower tax bracket. Maybe it's 20%. Well, 20% of $100,000, now you're paying $20,000 in taxes. So you're paying 10 times more in taxes, even though your financial advisor CPA told you were going to save taxes by putting money in a retirement account.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that, let's say you put your money in the 401k, but if you try to take the money before 59 and a half, then you have massive penalties on top of the taxes that you pay to get it out. You have penalties for so if you want to retire early, well, that's not going to happen. You're just automatically saying, well, I can't retire before 59 and a half.
Right.
Because,
and I mean, granted, there's a few loopholes. I mean, I like Roth's the best. You can always take your contributions out. You can always do a 72T. So you might have to pay the taxes, but you don't have to pay the penalties. So, I mean, there's a few workarounds.
And some of these loopholes there. Yeah, the Roth is a little bit different because you're putting your contribution after tax. So that's a little bit, but it grows tax free. And you can take them out. Yeah. So that.
And then regardless of what the tax rates are in the future, you've already paid the tax and you're done with it. So
exactly. But the 401k is a little bit like the regular 401k, not the Roth one. But the if you want to take the money before 59 and a half, then you get penalized. You get the taxes. You get such like.
Yeah, unless you have a hardship or life event or first time home buyer. I mean, you got a few exceptions there.
Few exceptions, but still.
Exactly. It's pretty much locked in jail.
Why have it in there in the first place? I can do that somewhere else. Yeah. Well, John, it was a pleasure speaking with you. And so if people want to reach out to you, what's the best place on Instagram or
Facebook? So I always joke around. I'm not too hard to find. I'm the only John Rickgarn in the world. So if you Google me or look on LinkedIn, you're bound to find me. LinkedIn, I probably network with most of the investors, but I also have a pretty large Instagram following, W Freedom Nexus, and all my social media tags you can find on my website as well. And if you're also, driving while listening to this, you can just type in rickgarn.com and that'll redirect you to my website as well and all my contact info.
Nice. Well, John, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Been great to be on.
Yep. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Break Away from the Rat Race with your host, Eric Martel. If you want to share your story and experience with our listeners, please message us on Facebook at Break Away from the Rat Race. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast on iTunes.